The end of the year has a way of sneaking up on photographers. One minute you're shooting fall sessions, then suddenly it's holiday minis, then editing marathons, then client gifts, then exhaustion. The year slips through your fingers, and when December arrives, you start feeling this pressure to evaluate everything. You start thinking you need a big reset, a new system, a new workflow, a new pricing structure, a whole new business plan. But the truth is, you don't need to reinvent your entire business in December. You don't need to overhaul everything. You don't need to perfect every process. You don't need to create some massive yearly strategy. You need momentum, not perfection. Momentum carries you into the new year with clarity and direction without burning you out before January even arrives. Most photographers try to do too much in December and end up feeling defeated. They write big lists, they make big promises, they set big expectations. And then they freeze because the list feels overwhelming. If you take one thing from this episode, let it be this. A small shift repeated consistently is far more powerful than a big plan that dies by February. Year-end planning should feel grounding, not punishing. It should feel like sitting with your business, not wrestling it. It should feel like checking in with yourself, not judging yourself. If you've ever felt shame about how the year went, please don't bring that energy into your planning. Don't shame yourself for slow months. Don't shame yourself for burnout. Don't shame yourself for changing direction. Don't shame yourself for growth that didn't look the way you expected. Growth rarely matches the plan in your head. What matters now is what you want the next season to feel like, not what you think you should have done, not what someone else's business looks like, not what the industry says you're supposed to be doing. This is your business, your energy, your season, your goals, your pace. When I'm planning for the new year, I don't start with metrics. I don't start with income goals. I don't start with marketing strategies. I start with how I want my business to feel. That feeling always tells me the truth. Do I want things to feel calmer? Do I want more clarity? Do I want sessions that feel aligned? Do I want fewer last-minute requests? Do I want more rest? Do I want more creativity? Do I want my workflow to finally breathe? Those feelings become the compass. Those feelings become the guide. Because if you start with numbers, you ignore your actual experience. But when you start with your experience, the numbers naturally line up. If I were sitting with you right now, I'd ask you a few gentle questions. Questions that help you see the year clearly, but without judgment. Questions that guide you into the kind of planning that builds momentum instead of pressure. What sessions gave you energy? What sessions drained you? What parts of your workflow felt smooth? What parts felt chaotic? What did clients thank you for? What did clients ask for more clarity on? What would you do again? What would you never repeat? These questions aren't about shame. They're about information. They're data, not emotional data, actual business data hidden inside your lived experience. Every answer reveals something about what you should focus on next year. If certain sessions drained you, that's a sign to shift your offers. If certain clients lit you up, that's a sign to lean into that niche. If certain workflow steps made you anxious, that's a sign to systematize. If certain tasks took too long, that's a sign to simplify. Year-end planning is not about fixing everything. It's about noticing what needs attention. The most powerful planning is simply awareness. Once you're aware, every decision becomes easier. You stop forcing yourself into things that don't align. You stop repeating patterns that don't serve you. If you're exhausted by December, that doesn't mean you did something wrong. It means you're human. It means your business is real. It means you're carrying a lot. It means you care. Year-end planning is not the time to punish yourself for that. It's the time to honor it. Honor the work you did. Honor the growth you made. Honor the way you showed up, even on hard weeks. And once you've honored your year, then you can choose what you're bringing into the next one. Here's something I wish every photographer knew. You don't need to set perfect goals. You don't need to create a huge strategic plan. You don't need a color-coded Google sheet with quarterly breakdowns. You need one clear direction. 1. Not 15, not 27, not a whole list that makes you feel guilty when you can't keep up. What direction do you want next year to move? Just one. Do you want to simplify? Do you want to be more consistent? Do you want to streamline your workflow? Do you want to raise your prices? Do you want to shoot fewer sessions? Do you want to shoot more of one type? Do you want to build your education brand? Do you want to work on burnout recovery? Pick one direction. Everything else becomes supporting details. When you choose a direction, your decisions finally make sense. You no longer chase random ideas. You no longer get stuck in comparison. You no longer say yes to everything. You no longer feel lost. Momentum grows when your energy is pointed in one direction at a time, not scattered everywhere. Another thing I want you to understand is that momentum does not require big moves. Sometimes momentum is tiny. Sometimes momentum is a 5-minute task. Sometimes momentum is deleting old workflows you don't use. Sometimes momentum is updating one email template. Sometimes momentum is writing a new welcome message. Sometimes momentum is organizing your SD cards. Sometimes momentum is giving yourself permission to rest. Perfection demands big moves. Momentum grows from tiny ones. And honestly, the only reason photographers struggle with year-end planning is because they think planning has to be dramatic. It doesn't. Planning can be gentle. Planning can be calming. Planning can be intuitive. Planning can be reflective. When you stop forcing perfection, you finally create a plan that feels real, and real plans actually happen. When you start thinking about the upcoming year, one of the most important things you can do is get honest about what you actually have the capacity for, not what you wish you had the capacity for, not what you think you should be able to handle, your real capacity, the season you're in, the energy you have, the responsibilities you're carrying, the reality of your life. Planning becomes harmful when it ignores your capacity, because when you create goals that don't match your energy, you end up feeling like you failed, even though the goal was unrealistic from the start. If you're tired, plan gently. If you're recovering, plan softly. If you're overwhelmed, plan simply. If you're ready to grow, plan clearly. Your plan should match your life, not punish it. Here's something that helped me more than anything. Instead of deciding what to add to my business, I started deciding what to remove. Removal creates space. Removal creates clarity. Removal creates ease. Ask yourself, what is draining me that no longer deserves space? What is weighing me down? What have I been forcing? What have I outgrown? What am I only doing out of obligation? Removing one heavy thing can create more momentum than adding 5 new goals. It might be removing a type of session that always stresses you out. It might be letting go of an editing style that takes too long. It might be simplifying your pricing. It might be deleting a workflow that no longer fits. It might be unfollowing accounts that make you feel behind. Removing the wrong things always accelerates the right things. This is why I love year-end planning. It's not just about setting goals. It's about shedding the weight that keeps you from moving forward. When you release what's not yours anymore, your direction becomes clearer. And when your direction becomes clearer, your momentum becomes unstoppable. Another part of year-end planning is getting honest about your numbers, but not in a shame-driven way. This is not the time to judge yourself harshly. This is the time to observe. Numbers are neutral. They're information. Look at your busiest months. Look at your slowest months. Look at which sessions brought the most income. Look at which sessions brought the most stress. Look at where your inquiries actually came from. Look at what converted and what didn't. This information is gold, not because it tells you what you should be doing, but because it shows you what is naturally working. When you see patterns, you can plan intentionally instead of guessing. If you notice that families book you consistently, that's a direction. If you see that newborns bring the most referrals, that's a direction. If you see that minis fill quickly, that's a direction. If you see that a certain niche feels heavy, that's a sign to shift. Let your actual data guide you, not your assumptions. But again, numbers aren't everything. Some of the most important planning you'll do is emotional. How did this year feel? Where did you feel pulled? Where did you feel resistance? Where did you feel energized? Where did you feel depleted? Your emotional landscape is data too. Emotional data often reveals the truth faster than revenue data. If you felt burnt out in October, that tells you something about your fall schedule. If you felt anxious during certain sessions, that tells you something about your niche. If you felt alive during certain shoots, that tells you something about your passion. If you felt overwhelmed by your workflow, that tells you something about your systems. If you felt uncertain about your pricing, that tells you something about your structure. Planning without emotional data is incomplete. When I say momentum over perfection, this is what I mean. Momentum is born from clarity. Momentum is born from small shifts. Momentum is born from honest reflection. You don't need a massive goal to build momentum. You need a direction. You need awareness. You need intention. One thing I recommend every photographer do in December is pick one area of their business to gently refresh. Just one, not all of them. Pick the area that will create the biggest feeling of relief. Maybe that's refreshing your email templates. Maybe that's cleaning up your client portal. Maybe that's simplifying your pricing sheet. Maybe that's updating your prep guides. Maybe that's reorganizing your Lightroom catalogs. Maybe that's setting up automations for confirmations. Maybe that's redesigning one landing page. One refresh can create months of ease. One refresh can create weeks of clarity. One refresh can reduce friction you've been carrying all year. Pick one thing that makes your future self exhale, not 10 things that overwhelm you. Another helpful piece of year-end planning is something I call closing loops. Closing loops means completing unfinished tasks that drain your mental energy. You know the ones. The things that sit on the edge of your mind and whisper, fix me, finish me, update me, organize me. Those loops steal your clarity. They steal your focus. They steal your momentum. Closing even one loop can feel like taking 50 pounds off your shoulders. Maybe it's cleaning your memory cards. Maybe it's archiving old galleries. Maybe it's replying to a long overdue email. Maybe it's updating your studio policies. Maybe it's sorting your external drives. Maybe it's backing up your year's work. Closing loops restores your mental bandwidth, and when you reclaim bandwidth, you move more easily into the new year. Another important part of planning is pacing yourself. You don't need to finish all your planning in one weekend. You don't need to cram strategy into a single day. You don't need to pressure yourself with deadlines. Planning happens best when it has space, small sessions, quiet moments, a little time to breathe. If you try to force perfection, planning becomes stressful. But when you allow it to unfold gently, your clarity becomes stronger. And here's a truth photographers forget. You don't need to prepare for the whole year. You only need to prepare for the next season. Seasons are manageable. Years feel overwhelming. Think in seasons, not years. What do you want the first quarter to feel like? What do you want winter sessions to look like? What do you want your January energy to be? What do you want February to hold? Small timelines create achievable goals. Achievable goals create momentum. Momentum builds confidence. Confidence creates consistency. Year-end planning is not about being a brand new person on January 1st. It's about guiding yourself in a direction that feels right for who you are now. Not the photographer you used to be, not the photographer you think you should be, the photographer you are today. When your planning honors your present self, your future self thrives. As you move toward the end of the year, I want you to think about one more thing: how you want to feel in January. Not what you want to accomplish, not how many bookings you want, not how much income you hope for. How you want to feel. Because your January feeling becomes the energy that carries you through the rest of the year. If you start January stressed, you'll make rushed decisions. If you start January exhausted, you'll crumble under small tasks. If you start January overwhelmed, you'll abandon your goals by February. If you start January grounded, everything becomes easier. So ask yourself, do I want to feel calm? Do I want to feel confident? Do I want to feel prepared? Do I want to feel organized? Do I want to feel rested? Do I want to feel clear? Your year-end decisions should create that feeling. They should guide you gently toward the emotional baseline you want, not the productivity baseline, the emotional one. Because the emotional baseline is what makes your strategy sustainable. Most photographers burn out because they try to plan from pressure instead of presence. They try to plan from fear instead of clarity. They try to plan from comparison instead of alignment. But when you plan from presence, when you plan from your actual life, your actual energy, your actual needs, everything aligns more naturally. One thing I love doing at the end of the year is reflecting on the decisions that felt good, not just the ones that worked, the ones that felt good, the sessions that brought joy, the workflow steps that made life easier, the content that felt aligned, the boundaries that protected my energy. Those decisions are clues. Those decisions show you what your business wants to become. Those decisions show you what direction is most natural for you. Another powerful tool for year-end planning is something I call intentional simplification. It means removing friction in advance before it becomes a problem next year. It means setting yourself up emotionally and logistically before the rush happens. Simplification might look like adjusting your session availability so you have more breathing room. Simplification might look like rewriting confusing emails so clients have fewer questions. Simplification might look like grouping your editing days so you don't context switch constantly. Simplification might look like updating your prep guide so you don't repeat the same explanations 100 times. Simplification might look like using templates more often instead of writing everything from scratch. Simplification creates peace. Simplification creates consistency. Simplification creates mental space for creativity. If you start the new year with simplified systems, you reduce burnout before it even begins. Here's something else I've learned. Your business grows when you grow, not just your skills. Your skills, your confidence, your boundaries, your self-awareness, your understanding of what kind of photographer you actually want to be. So part of year-end planning is reintroducing yourself to your business. Who are you now? What do you want now? What matters to you now? What patterns do you want to break? What pieces of your identity have shifted? Your business should evolve with you, not trap you. If your goals from last year don't match you anymore, let them go. If your niche doesn't feel aligned anymore, shift it. If your session structure feels heavy, adjust it. If your workflow feels rigid, soften it. If your pricing feels forced, rewrite it. You're allowed to change. Your business is allowed to change. Your vision is allowed to change. Year-end planning isn't about forcing yourself into who you used to be. It's about welcoming who you are now. Something I want you to hold on to is this. Momentum can be built in very small ways. You don't need a dramatic strategy to start the new year strong. You don't need a color-coded binder with step-by-step goals. You don't need huge declarations. Momentum grows from tiny actions repeated gently. One organized folder, one updated email, one refined offer, one better boundary, one clearer prep guide, one calmer workflow. Small actions shift your entire year. If you start January with something as simple as a clearer booking flow, your stress drops. If you start January with updated templates, your clients feel more supported. If you start January with your editing system organized, you move through work more easily. If you start January with boundaries around your time, you avoid burnout sooner. Every small action creates ripple effects. And here's something else that matters. You do not have to do all your year-end planning in December. You can spread it out. You can take it slow. You can reflect in January too. Nothing magical happens on January 1st, nothing expires. You are allowed to evolve your plan across the first quarter. The obsession with new year, new everything is unrealistic. What you need is new year, steady direction. That's what creates real change. That's what creates sustainable growth. That's what moves your business forward without draining you. If there's one message I want you to take away from this episode, it's this. Planning shouldn't feel like punishment. Planning shouldn't feel like pressure. Planning shouldn't feel like you're being judged by your past self. Planning should feel like partnership. You and your business working together. You and your future self in conversation. You choosing what to carry and what to set down. You honoring your capacity. You honoring your intuition. You honoring your humanity. There is no perfect plan. There is only direction. There is only clarity. There is only momentum. And that momentum doesn't come from big moves. It comes from small acts of intention stacked gently over time. If you're feeling behind right now, you're not behind. You're in transition. If you're feeling tired right now, rest is part of growth. If you're feeling uncertain right now, clarity will come. If you're feeling overwhelmed right now, simplify. If you're feeling stuck right now, choose one small shift. Your next season doesn't need you to be perfect. It needs you to be present. It needs you to be curious. It needs you to be honest. It needs you to move one step at a time. Momentum over perfection, always. And if you want support while you build that momentum, I'd love to have you inside the Savvy Shutterbug School community. It's where we talk honestly about planning, workflow, systems, burnout, creativity, and everything that helps you build a grounded, sustainable photography business. You can also explore my digital resources and courses anytime at savvyshutterbug.com. These tools exist to help you move into the next season with more clarity, more confidence, and more ease. You don't need to carry this alone. You can build slowly. You can build gently. You can build with support. Your next chapter is already on its way, and it doesn't require perfection to begin.